Elex et al. Please welcome your moderators, Elex Michaelson and Jon Regardie.
Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome inside Engine Company number 28 and LA Magazine's debate in the LA County DA's race. I'm Elex Michaelson, one of the co-anchors at Fox 11 Los Angeles and host of the statewide political show, The Issue Is.
And I'm Jon Regardie. I'm a reporter covering politics for Los Angeles Magazine and its website, lamag.com.
Right now, speaking of lamag.com, we are streaming live on lamag.com. We are also live on the radio on LAist 89.3 FM. Thank you, everybody who's watching and listening.
And tonight, we are talking about the office of the LA County District Attorney. The office employs nearly 1,000 attorneys and prosecutes felonies in a county with 10 million residents. There are also more than 1,000 additional staff members. The District Attorney's office has units for, amongst other things, organized crime, environmental crime, public integrity, and cybercrime. This is one of the largest and most influential prosecutorial offices in the entire country.
So you're saying this job is kind of a big deal?
It's a big deal.
Okay, it's a big deal, and that is why we're here. We are going to be taking turns asking questions, 60 seconds per question for each of you. We will allow some rebuttals at our discretion if needed. Those will be 30 seconds each. All right, everybody, we're asking the crowd to stay quiet for most of it, except for right now. Can you give the candidates a big round of applause? There we go. Thank you all for being here. I'll be asking the first question, and we're going to start with you, Judge Milton, and go around. Every person on this stage is deeply experienced, but with a field this big, there's a lot of people in LA that don't know a lot about a lot of you. Can you explain what distinguishes you from everybody else on this stage, and what about your life experience makes you most qualified to be the district attorney?
Thank you for that great question. I am the most experienced candidate here. I spent 24 years on the Los Angeles Superior Court, 12 years as a prosecutor. What distinguishes me from the other candidates, I guess you could say I'm the only Republican in the group. And so that's a distinguishing factor. I'm law and order, I'm conservative, I'm fair-minded. I have what it takes to run the DA's office. I had 3 executive management opportunities managing lawyers. I managed a group of lawyers when I was a deputy in charge in Downey. I managed a group of lawyers when I was the chief assistant prosecutor in Indianapolis, a large group of lawyers. And I managed a group of lawyers as assistant chief trial counsel with the state bar. That being said, my management style is different. I believe in giving trained professionals almost complete autonomy. And that's what I intend to do as the new district attorney. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. McKinney, to you.
All right, thank you, Elex. Elex, I have a unique life experience for a prosecutor. Life dealt me a pretty tough hand early on. I was orphaned at 5 years old. I was raised by my sister, who raised 5 children on her own during the worst part of the crack epidemic. Turns out that experience was very instructive for me. I learned about criminalization. I learned about victimization. And those lessons have served me very well as a prosecutor over the last 25 years, where I've really excelled in the district attorney's office as a leader who's prosecuted every manner of violent crime, and who has been a good mentor and leader for the younger attorneys in our office. I currently supervise a courthouse in East LA, where I'm getting instructive managerial experience. And so I think that separates me from a lot of people on the stage, some of whom have never worked for the DA's office or prosecuted a state crime.
Now to somebody who has, Mr. Siddall.
Well, thank you again for hosting and moderating. I think what I represent that's different from everyone on this stage is I represent a new generation of prosecutors. And my generation of prosecutors does not want to turn back the clock. We don't want to go back to the 80s and the 90s. But we also recognize that the social experiment that Mr. Gascon has been engaging with is not working. I actually have a plan on how to modernize this office. I have a plan on how to make you safe, how to deal with the mentally ill, and how to deal with our homeless crisis in Los Angeles. You know, I have a violence reduction strategy, and it's a strategy that will target the worst offenders. We will be able to engage with the homeless, and we will also deal with the mentally ill under my administration, and I think that makes me very different from everyone else on the stage.
And we'll talk about all those topics tonight and look forward to hearing more about your plan. Mr. Chemerinsky.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be here tonight. My name's Jeff Chemerinsky. I grew up in Los Angeles, and my wife, Kim, and I are raising our 3 young kids here. Recently, I was a federal prosecutor and assistant United States attorney here in Los Angeles. I was the chief of the Violent and Organized Crime section for the U.S. Attorney's Office. That means I oversaw all violent crime prosecutions for the federal government, not just for L.A. County, but for L.A. County and 6 surrounding counties, 19 million people total. I worked on pretty much every type of violent crime case there is and partnered with pretty much every law enforcement agency in the county. I also, over my time as a federal prosecutor, specialized in armed robbery cases and smash and grab robberies. I think that experience makes me uniquely suited to address this specific problem that I think is so affecting so many people in our county. I've prosecuted dozens, probably more than anyone else on this stage, of armed robbery cases, and I'm ready to go after the smash and grab problem in this county.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gascon, question a little bit different to you since people do know you and you've been in the job. How would you rate your performance in office so far, and why do you think you deserve another 4 years?
Yeah, thank you, Alec, and thank you for the opportunity. Let me begin by saying that I was elected 4 years ago on a very clear platform that we could bring both public safety and reform. And as I became the district attorney, we went through a horrible pandemic where crime went up nationwide, it went up in our community. But we moved forward with a platform that got me elected in 2020. And now for the last year, we have seen crime coming down, not only in our community, but we're seeing crime going down nationwide. At the same time that we have continued with the reform efforts. And we're showing that not only we cannot go back to the way that we did business, but actually the fact is that reforming is good for public safety. What I will continue to do if I were to be honored with being reelected is continue to move forward the office into a 21st century prosecution that cares for the victims for our community and does so in a thoughtful and intelligent way.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hochman, what distinguishes you?
Thank you, Alex. So unlike the current district attorney, who has actually no personal prosecutorial or defense criminal experience, I bring 34 years of prosecutorial experience as a federal prosecutor who went after narcotics traffickers, violent gang members, international money launderers, and environmental criminals, dirty cops, and corrupt public officials. I'm the only person here who received a presidential appointment, a unanimous Senate confirmation, to be a U.S. Assistant Attorney General in charge of the U.S. Department of Justice's Tax Division. I also was the head of 2 major international law firms' government investigations divisions, as well as being the president of the L.A. City Ethics Commission and the co-founder of the L.A. Sheriff's Foundation. I believe that gives me a unique skill set to run the largest prosecutorial office in the entire United States. In addition, I bring independence. I'm the only person here who is running as an independent to bring politics out of the DA's office and remove the political agenda that George Gascon has brought there.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ramirez.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Ramirez, and I am a lifelong Angelino, having been born and raised in Los Angeles County. 33 years ago, I decided to join the district attorney's office because I saw the effects that gang violence was having on my neighborhood of Boyle Heights, and that is what drove me to join the district attorney's office. Over 33 years, I have dedicated myself to making sure that victims of crime in our communities, in our most vulnerable communities, have a voice in the district attorney's office and in criminal justice in Los Angeles. And I worked my way from being a trial lawyer in the district attorney's office all the way to the head deputy position, and Jackie Lacey appointed me to the position of bureau director in top management. Leadership is going to be important in the DA's office to move our office forward and to move criminal justice to a more fair way of doing justice in Los Angeles County. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hatami.
Thank you. I've spent 17 and a half years in the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office as a prosecutor. Every day, I fight for abused, neglected, and murdered children. Not only do I fight as a prosecutor, I was a victim of child abuse and a victim of a parental kidnapping. So I know what it means to feel helpless and hopeless. I'm supported by many victims and survivors and surviving family members. I'm backed by 12 police officer associations, over 60 elected officials throughout L.A. County, 3 elected district attorneys. I was the first deputy district attorney on December 15, 2020, to step forward publicly and challenge George Gascon's directives and let the public know that we are in a fight for public safety here in this community. I've also spent 7 years in the United States Army leading soldiers as a staff sergeant, and I believe that sets me apart from all the challengers, and we're ready to take on George Gascon and beat him at this primary on March the 5th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Judge Mitchell.
Thank you. What distinguishes my candidacy from everyone else is I have spent 45 years serving the people of Los Angeles County in a capacity that no one else on this stage has done. My first 17 years I spent teaching in South Los Angeles, understanding what would equip young people to succeed in life. I went to law school at night, and then I was a prosecutor for 11 years. At the end of that career, I tried more murder cases than any other prosecutor in Los Angeles. I have been a Superior Court judge for the last 18 and a half years, and very significantly, for the last 13 years, I founded the Skid Row Running Club. I am on the ground in Skid Row, dealing with the homeless population, dealing with the people who are addicted Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, 52 weeks out of the year for 13 years. That's a perspective that no one else enjoys on this stage. Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to talking more about homelessness with you a little bit later. Judge Archuleta, to you. What distinguishes you?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we'll restart your clock. How about we, Judge, do you mind giving her the mic and then we'll get that figured out?
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me okay?
There we go.
Yes, I'm Judge Deborah Archuleta. The question, ladies and gentlemen, is, are we safer now than we were 3 years ago? Unequivocally, we are not. My journey started when I was 19 years old, and I was the victim of a violent domestic abuse assault by a boyfriend that I had at that time. I didn't realize it, but for 2 years, I had a blood clot growing on my brain. When I was 21 years old, I had to have brain surgery for the removal of a subdural hematoma. I made a vow that if I could survive this, I never told my parents, I never reported it to law enforcement. I just thought I would just soldier on. I worked as a legal secretary. I put myself through college and law school at night and on the weekends. I joined the district attorney's office proudly in 1989 as a law clerk. I started at the basement, if you will, and I worked myself up to the top step grade 4 trial lawyer in the office. I ran as a Superior Court judge, and other than the current DA, I'm the only candidate in this field that has ever won a countywide election. I have served as your Superior Court judge since 2016, and we are not safer today than we were 3 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of remarkable experiences on this stage today. John, now to you.
Thank you, Alex. Mr. McKinney, we're going to start with you on this one. Let's flash forward. You get through this election, and then you win the general election in November. You are inaugurated in December. What is the #1 most significant thing that you are going to do differently from the current district attorney on day one when you are sworn in?
Well, thank you for the question. Well, my brand is proportional justice. That's what I believe in. Proportional justice means that each case and each person is treated uniquely. So on my first day in office, just after I'm sworn in, I will repeal any vestige and replace any vestige of the original directives issued by George Gascon on his first day in office. And the reason I will do that is because much of what he imposed upon us on that day were a set of one-size-fits-all blanket policies that showed no empathy for victims and had no real plan to deal with the important nuances that are involved in criminal behavior and criminal pathology. I will address the outrageous crisis and violence against black women in Los Angeles County that sees 4% of our population suffering 1/3 of the female homicides, something no one talks about. I will.
Thank you. Mr. Sadal, on day one, what are you doing differently?
So the district attorney's office right now is an institution in crisis. We are only operating at 75% capacity. You stated there were 1,000 prosecutors. There's about 750 prosecutors right now. We need to rebuild the DA's office. If we're actually going to do the mission of prosecuting people and keeping people safe, we need to rebuild it. So what am I going to do? First of all, I'm going to restore the mission of the office, which is to protect the public. Then we're going to hire people. And then we're going to also have a crime reduction strategy, a strategy that focuses on the drivers of crime. Most people don't understand that most violent crime in our city, in our county, is actually committed by a very small percentage of criminals. We're going to focus our energies and our resources on those individuals. And altogether with that, we will rebuild the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office and restore trust with the public and our law enforcement partners.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chemerinsky, on day one, your plans.
Thank you. As district attorney, my number one priority would be public safety. It's the number one goal of the district attorney to keep the public safe, to work with law enforcement, to hold people accountable and prosecute crimes. And that would be my number one priority above all else as district attorney. I think as district attorney, one of the top missions has to be to restore confidence in the district attorney's office and restore a sense of partnership with law enforcement. And I'd do exactly that. I'd collaborate with law enforcement and restore the sense of partnership that I think right now is lacking. As chief of the Violent and Organized Crime section, I worked closely with law enforcement. We set common goals and priorities. We worked on allocation of resources together. And all those are tools that I'd bring to the district attorney's office on day one to prioritize public safety and make sure that people have a sense of safety in our communities and in our county. And I'd work tirelessly to do exactly that.
Thank you very much. District Attorney Gascon, slightly different question. If you win a second term, it will be a stamp of approval for your first term. So what would you do on that day one of your second term?
Look, I've been involved in public safety for 40 years. I started walking the streets of L.A. as a police officer, went all the way to becoming an assistant chief, and then I was a chief of police in 2 different cities. I have been an elected prosecutor now going into my 3rd term, 2 terms in San Francisco and 1 here. And the work that we started to do in L.A. is showing results. One of the biggest problems that we have in our system is the inequality and the high levels of recidivism that are the result of a lot of the work that people in this stage have engaged in for years that has created one of the highest incarceration rates of any nation in the world. We are showing that we can hold people accountable and that we can be safe at the same time. And if I were to be honored with getting reelected, I will continue on the path of reforming the office and moving forward and hiring a whole different brand of prosecutors that we have for the last 3 years that will take us into the 21st century.
Thank you. Mr. Hochman, you've won. Voters have approved you. What's happening on your first day?
So when George Gascon had his first day, he issued 9 of the most pro-criminal special directive blanket policies in L.A. County history, heralding in the golden age of criminals for the last 3 years. I would end that golden age on my day one, reversing blanket policies because those blanket policies basically say that George Gascon's experience trumps the 900 prosecutors underneath him, which is quite shocking because he has never actually prosecuted a criminal case in his life versus the thousands of years of experience his prosecutors brought to bear. I would partner with those prosecutors. I would partner with law enforcement rather than actually prosecuting law enforcement is my priority. I would partner with law enforcement, and I would make sure that victims know that they now have an open door to the DA's office. So I would allow and reverse Gascon's policy that does not have prosecutors go with victims to parole hearings.
Thank you. Ms. Ramirez, voters have chosen you. What's different on day one?
I think if you ask any of the challengers here today, I think we would all repeal the pro-criminal directives that George Gascon put into practice. I think we can all agree on that. I think the important thing to do as we move forward with new policies in our office is that we really have to understand what our community wants, what our community needs. And to do that, we have to understand that our community wants to feel safe. They want to feel safe when they go to work. They want to feel safe when children go to school. And so we have to be able to establish a firm public safety agenda for our office. We have to restore the public's trust that we are doing the job that we have to do to keep them safe. We cannot go forward with reform in our office if we do not have that strong public safety base. So we have to listen to our communities, and that's what I intend to do in implementing new policies that put victims and communities first.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hatami, you've won the election. How are you starting off?
Exactly the opposite of what George Gascon has done. If you're dealing fentanyl to children or teenagers and killing them, we're going to prosecute those cases to the fullest extent of the law. If you're committing hate crimes, we're going to stand up and prosecute those cases to the fullest extent of the law. If you're committing smash and grab burglaries, organized retail theft, we need to stand up and protect our community and our businesses, and we're going to prosecute those cases to the fullest extent of the law. We have a society right now in Los Angeles who feels really unsafe. They feel unsafe going to the supermarket or going to the mall. They feel unsafe going to the beach. They feel unsafe walking with their children or walking their dog. If you're committing these type of crimes, we need to stand up and say you are going to be held accountable and responsible for your crimes. In addition to that, we need to fight for victims and survivors and surviving family members. George Gascon has abandoned all of the victims here in Los Angeles, and they need to feel that somebody's standing up and making sure that they're taken care of and making sure we're fighting for justice for all the victims here in Los Angeles County.
Thank you very much. Judge Mitchell, your first day, what's different?
First day, I would reflect on the fact that about 4 months ago in my courtroom, a gentleman came in, he was trafficking 20 kilos of methamphetamine. What was Mr. Gascon's offer to that drug trafficker? 3 days in jail, 2 years of probation. Not on my watch. Additionally, I would assume the responsibility of prosecuting misdemeanors. We need to figure out how to get people who are engaged in low-level crimes into the criminal justice system so that those who are crying out for mental health treatment, for addiction treatment, can actually be encouraged to obtain such treatment. Those circumstances, mental illness, addiction, is fueling much of the property crime and violence in Los Angeles, and I would have a plan to squarely address that so our streets would look very different after a few years of my tenure. Thank you.
Thank you. And Judge Archuleta, voters have picked you. What are we seeing on day one that's different?
Well, we're going to stop victimizing the criminals, and we're going to stop criminalizing the victims. I, too, like my fellow colleagues up here, except for Mr. Gascon, will reverse the special directives. I do not believe in blanket policies. We need individualized justice from bail at the very onset of a case all the way to the parole board hearings. We need to file gun enhancements. It used to be if you used a gun and you were a criminal, you went to jail. Now you use a gun if you're defending your family or your property or your home, and you're the one going to jail. I will be looking very seriously at imposing strike priors on serious and violent and repeat offenders. I will be asking for bail on appropriate cases within the courts of the County of Los Angeles. Right now, unless it's a high-profile media case, the DAs, by and large, are told not to go in and ask for bail. And I hear this from very reliable sources, my friends that sit on the Superior Court L.A. County bench. This needs to end on day one.
Thank you very much. And finally, Judge Milton, your day one agenda, what's different?
Thank you. Every one of these candidates here, with the exception of Mr. Gascon, has identified the destructive policies implemented by Mr. Gascon. But it's more than that. It's broader than that. This is a national movement, folks. Mr. Gascon is one of the soft-on-crime prosecutors who have been put into place by George Soros. He's funded them. He's put $2.5 million behind Mr. Gascon and the other district attorneys strategically placed in our major cities in this country. Their aim is to destroy our constitutional democratic republic. That's what it's about. It's much broader than these acts that he's doing now. And so if I'm the district attorney, I will reverse every one of those destructive policies and get us back to our core mission, which is public safety.
All right, I just want to, since we're hearing a lot of this here, just to make this point clearer, raise your hands if on day one you would reverse the special directives. So, well, okay, I'm interested. First off, Jeff, your take on why you wouldn't.
There is one special directive, one blanket policy I agree with, and that's the death penalty prohibition. I would not seek to apply the death penalty, and I have no issue with that prohibition.
But every other one you'd get rid of?
I think that they could be done better, and that would be my goal. I think that we need guidance and guidelines rather than blanket policies.
And Mr. Gascon, a lot just was said about you. Golden age of criminals, criminalizing the victim, soft on crime. What's your response to all that?
Well, look, I mean, it neglects the fact that I've been involved in public safety my entire adult life, including the time that I was in the military as a sergeant, leading troops as a police officer and a prosecutor. The facts don't support what these folks are saying here today, but, you know, I understand that they have to compete, right? If you look at the crime numbers, they do not support many of the arguments that are being made here. When you compare the safety of our community to that of neighboring communities that are doing business as usual, you see that we compare very well. Now, Americans, as I mentioned at the very beginning, 63% of Americans recently polled say that they felt unsafe and less safe today than they did last year. And that is part of the work that I have to do, is to continue to deal with our community to make sure that they feel safe. We're prosecuting violent crimes at the same rate this office has for years. We're prosecuting misdemeanors that involve violence at the same rate. We are dealing with organized retail theft. We're dealing with fentanyl. The reality is that all that work is being done and will continue to be done if I were to be reelected.
Okay, we'll give all of you chances to talk about those different issues over the rest of the night. But the next question is for Mr. Gascon, and it's about something that's been in the news this week. Mr. Hochman, who's sitting next to you, said that you should fire your chief of staff, whose name is Tiffany Blacknell, and she has made some comments in the past about the LAPD, calling them barbarians, an occupying army, calling for the defunding of the police. Mr. Gascon, do you agree with those comments? If you don't agree with those comments, why did you promote her? And what do you say to critics of the way that you've managed this office?
Look, not only do I disagree, but frankly it's offensive to look at someone that spent over 20 years as a public servant in this community, a black woman, a black mother of 3 kids, one that will soon be driving as a 16-year-old, and the fact that she feels fearful that she has to have the talk with a 16-year-old because she's afraid that once he gets behind the wheel of a car, he may be mistaken for a criminal for no other reason than the fact that he happens to be black and that he may end up losing his life. I think that it's important that people that are in privileged places begin to understand and be sensitive to the different needs of our various communities. Ms. Blacknell is an incredible public servant. Ms. Blacknell has given her life to this community, and I think it's horribly offensive to simply wipe out the fact that as a black American, she has a very different experience than Mr. Hochman.
Mr. Hochman, your response.
It's not Ms. Blacknell's experience that I have issue with. It's her feelings about law enforcement that she has publicly said, Mr. Gascon. She has publicly said that law enforcement are barbarians. Mr. Michaelson asked you to agree with that. I'm assuming you agree with that because you said you didn't take issue with it. She said that the police are an occupying force. She wore a T-shirt that said, and publicly posted this, "The police are trained to kill us." Mr. Gascon, imagine a defense attorney goes in and he's cross-examining a police officer, and the defense attorney accuses that police officer of being a barbarian, and the prosecutor objects. And the answer for the defense attorney is your chief of staff is my evidence for it, because your chief of staff has publicly called the police barbarians. That's what I have an issue with. And if you couldn't find anyone in the 900 deputy district attorneys to elevate to your chief of staff other than someone with no prosecutorial experience, that is more a claim about your lack of leadership and your poor judgment than anything dealing with Tiffany Blacknell.
You want a 30-second rebuttal to that?
Look, I think that Mr. Hockman is enjoying trying to touch on race in a way that I find extremely offensive. Ms. Blacknell has been a public servant for over 20 years. Ms. Blacknell not only spent 20 years in the public defender's office and tried many cases, including murder cases, which makes her a very qualified trial attorney, but she's been part of this administration for 3 years and has shown nothing but loyalty to the community and the safety of our community. And yes, I will stand behind her because I stand behind every community in Los Angeles, including the African-American community.
Mr. Siddall, let's get you involved in this. Not only the question about her, but the bigger question about how to manage the office and how you may manage the office differently.
You know, I think Mr. Hockman's political stunt the other day is distracting. Mr. Gascon's policies are an issue here, and I disagree with Mr. Gascon's policies tremendously. But, you know, look, we all want Mr. Gascon, on this stage, we all want Mr. Gascon to leave office. No, again, no disrespect, but we all do. But let me tell you, Mr. Hockman lost badly against the state version of George Gascon. There is no way in God's green earth that he is going to beat George Gascon in a general election. So what does he do? These political stunts attacking a member of the district attorney's office. And so, no, I don't agree with that approach. I think we should be attacking George Gascon's policies because it's his policies and his management style that are at fault, and that's what needs to change, and that's what I'm going to change.
Mr. Hockman, want to weigh in on that? 30 seconds.
Certainly. It's not a political stunt. I addressed an issue of the chief of staff. Mr. Gascon elevated a woman to be his chief of staff who has said publicly that the police are barbarians, an occupying force, and that they are trained to kill us, and has no prosecutorial experience as a deputy district attorney. That's what I took issue with. As far as my chances of winning, Mr. Siddall, again, I am running here as an independent in this race because I believe we should be fiercely independent. George Gascon has showed what happens when you're not independent. I'm running as an independent in this race.
Mr. Chemerinsky, we're going to keep this thing real quickly.
One point. If it wasn't a political stunt, then why didn't he do it 3 years ago? You know, this has been known for years about what she has stated. But why does he do it now? Because he's running for office and he wants to distract the voter that he is a Republican.
Okay.
And again, she just got elevated to be chief of staff, one of the top positions in the office. Again, plus,
okay, all right, we're gonna leave that. We're gonna get other people involved.
Are you going to leave her in place as your chief of staff? Do you
Absolutely
advocate?
not.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
That is my point.
Okay, Mr. Chemerinsky, you're running as a Democrat. If you want to weigh in this, fine. But if not, just management. How would you manage the office? What kind of people would you surround yourself with?
Thank you. I would choose as my staff people who share my values. I'm running on 3 major values or platforms. Those are first, public safety, second, criminal justice reform, because I believe I can be a better and more effective reformer than our current district attorney, and third, the need for new leadership and accountability within the district attorney's office. I'd want a front office that shares those same values and that also shares the values of Los Angeles, that reflects a diversity both in experience and viewpoint, to really bring out the best of me as district attorney and of the entire office. I believe that that's incredibly important. As to Ms. Blacknell and her promotion to chief of staff, I'm not going to criticize that. That's not my place. She's not up here to defend herself, and I'd much rather focus on my skills and my qualities to be district attorney rather than attack a staff member who's not up here to defend herself. I think I'm happy to discuss why I'd be a much better district attorney than George Gascon, but I see no need to criticize his staff members.
Ms. Ramirez, you've been in the office a long time. How would you run it?
First of all, this is an issue about leadership and the fact that George Gascon has not been a leader for us in the district attorney's office. There are many qualified individuals within our office that could have led and worked with him to make sure that public safety and reform were implemented in a very safe fashion. But instead, he came into an office that he was elected to lead and ignored his staff, ignored our opinions. He is ignoring the very people that he was elected to lead. That is the issue. It's not about this one person, Ms. Blacknow. There was a very qualified African-American woman who had served in our office honorably for 35 years and was in top management that could have been the excellent chief of staff, but he refused to look at us because he did not want us to get in the way of his political agenda. So it is about leadership and the fact that he does not lead.
What do you say to that, Mr. Gascon, that you're not talking to the people in your own office?
Look, that's completely not the case, and Ms. Ramirez and others know this, and the reality is that not only do I talk to the people in the office, but I have done a tremendous amount of work to make sure that we get the office into a better place. We've promoted over 100 people. We have now hired about 85 new lawyers. Our office is actually running extremely well under very adverse conditions.
Yeah.
Now, the definition of
quickly.
running the office the way that Ms. Ramirez would want, or some others, taking us back to the days where we sent 24 people in 2 terms to death row, that we sent hundreds of kids into the adult prison system. Yes, those are not things that I'm doing, and we are not doing it, and we're seeing the community, actually, the crime numbers coming down.
Okay. Mr. Hatami, you obviously were one of the most critical people of him on stage. You get in there. How do you manage differently? Who surrounds you?
I just want to address a few issues. My wife is here. She's a 16-year veteran of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. She's a good police officer. She's not a barbarian. We should not be calling any police officers barbarians. My children are here. They respect their mom. My daughter wants to be a police officer. And so, Mr. Gascon, what you have going on in the office right now is disturbing, it's sick, and it's disrespectful to so many people here in Los Angeles. Most of the police officers, they live here. They have families. They have children. Number 2, Mr. Gascon has not talked to many people in the office because he's never talked to me. And he hasn't talked to me for 3 years. What he did do is order me to remove strikes on a little girl, a 4-year-old girl named Eternity, who was tortured and murdered by her mom. What he did do is order me to remove the special circumstance of intentional murder by torture of a 10-year-old little boy named Anthony Avalos, who was tortured and murdered by his mom and her boyfriend. And so we need a leader. This is important. We need a leader who wants to uplift people in the office. We need a leader who wants to lead the office and bring public safety back, and he hasn't done that.
Thank you. Judge Mitchell, to you.
If people in Los Angeles are going to feel safe, the district attorney needs to figure out how to work with law enforcement. And when you appoint as your chief of staff someone who is alienating law enforcement, that fundamental constructive relationship is broken. Anyone who talks to law enforcement throughout Los Angeles County understand they're demoralized. In my campaign throughout this county, officer after officer has said, when is the district attorney going to work with us? We know that any time a crime occurs, who responds first? It's the police. It's the sheriff's department. Then it becomes the district attorney's obligation to prosecute. Police are turning a blind eye to so many crimes because they know nothing is going to happen, even if they bring the case to the district attorney.
That's quite an allegation. I mean, 30 seconds, Mr. Gascon. What do you say to people who say that police don't trust you?
Look, first of all, I'm the only one in the stage here that was a police officer for nearly 3 decades, right? I'm the only one that actually worked at black and white. I'm the only one that spent most of his adult life as a police officer, and I have incredible respect for the men and women in uniform, many of my friends, and we work very closely with our police departments. That is evidenced by the fact of the number of cases that we file, the work that we do. But I also recognize that police has to be held accountable to a different standard.
Okay. Ms. Archuleta, or Judge Archuleta.
Thank you. Well, George Gascon has ruined San Francisco, and now he's very well on his way to ruining Los Angeles. So when I'm elected on day one, I will be, first of all, working with the ADDA, his own deputy district attorneys. They've lost 20% of the workforce because they don't want to work for him. They voted against him, 97% disapproval rating and a 3% approval rating. I'm sure you've all heard the statistics. It was big news about 2 years ago when the ADDA, his own deputies, were put to a vote about whether or not they approve his management style or not. He shows complete and utter contempt and disrespect for the men and women that have sacrificed their careers to work to protect public safety. I spent 28 years in the office, from Ira Reiner to Jackie Lacey. Luckily, I got out before he came in because I would have expected there to be problems. I've had former DAs beg me and tell me, Deborah, when you're elected, I'm coming back to work for you when you lead the office.
Thank you, Judge. Judge Milton, to you.
Yes. Let me begin by saying, why is it, I want you to think about this, why is it that an individual who has never tried a case ever, the district attorney of the largest prosecution agency in the country, it's a movement, he's part of it, and I'm offended every time he played the same thing on Jackie Lacey. He asserts the race card. He's done it again, and he's going to do it this time. And he thinks that the African-American community is of such low intellect that we don't realize that. This is exactly what he's doing. He's part of that movement, that nationwide movement to destroy our democracy. He's moving it in the direction of socialism and communism. You might say, oh, yeah, talk. I have proof of it, but you wouldn't let me bring it up here to demonstrate it. I have proof of it. No question about it. The chief of staff wants to disband the Los Angeles Police Department and all the other police agencies. So let's get rid of the police departments. Let's empty the jails like he's doing.
All right, that's time. Thank you, sir. And no, we did have a no prop rule. Mr. McKinney, your take.
Thank you. This really is a question of leadership. Anyone taking over a major organization or company is going to start by getting to know the men and women who are going to be entrusted to carry out his or her vision. Mr. Gascon didn't take the time to do that. Mr. Gascon came into office having called us internal terrorists before he ever met with us. Mr. Gascon came into office having taken the time to meet with the public defenders and explaining his vision to them, but never met with us to explain his vision to us and convince us, if we needed to be convinced, that his way was a better way. Ms. Blacknell is not the issue here. I agree she was a poor hire. She is a very passionate criminal defense attorney who is occupying a space in the DA's office that should be reserved for a very passionate prosecutor. That's the nature of our system.
Real quickly, last rebuttal to this, Mr. Gascon. What he's saying and what other people are saying is, why not meet with some of your top prosecutors when you first came into the office? Isn't there value in spending time with them?
Actually, that's incorrect. Not only that I met with many people in the office, I traveled throughout the entire county and met with many people. Now, it's important to recognize I was elected on December 7th of 2020. We were in the middle of a pandemic. Most of our people were working remotely. Most of our courtrooms were dark. I remember visiting offices where there would be 2 or 3 people at a given time in the office. We had over 500 members of our office that came down with COVID. We had family members that died.
So I'm sorry, we're over time. Just to clarify this point, of the deputy DAs that are on the stage right now, raise your hand if you had a conversation with the district attorney within the first year of him being in office.
And I would like to comment on that, if I may.
Real quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was the leader of one of the leaders of our union. So when George Gascon first took office, I thought, you know what? He won the election. It's time to put the people's business first, politics behind us. And so I did outreach to him on behalf of all of our members. He spent 4.5 minutes on that conversation. It was very clear from day one, and even before day one, that he had zero interest in actually knowing how this office functioned and meeting the prosecutors who make it function.
All right, we're going to move on to another topic since I think we've exhausted some of this. Jon Regardie, to you.
And we are going to change the tone a little bit with this one. Mr. Siddall, we're going to start with you. Look, a big part of what we're doing tonight is trying to give voters a chance to get to know you, not just your policies, but you, because this person will be front and center for, once again, 10 million Angelinos for the next 4 years. So, Mr. Siddall, which individual has most influenced your worldview? Who is it and why?
Probably St. Ignatius. I actually almost became a Jesuit priest. And so I always appreciated the idea of a contemplative in action, someone who would think about things but also actually get things done. So that's probably the person that kind of influenced me the most. And then on a personal level, my mother. My mother came to the United States as an immigrant from Argentina. She struggled. She made a business for herself. She actually became a member of the United States Civil Rights Commission as a commissioner. And I saw what she did in terms of her life, how she made her life, how she represented many members of the Latino community, since she was one of the very first female lawyers who was also Latina. And so she was a huge influence in my life as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chemerinsky, someone who's influenced you.
My mother has been a tremendous influence to me. My mother is a law professor at Loyola Law School. She's taught criminal procedure for over 30 years and is a terrific scholar and lawyer, but also has shown an amazing dedication to me and to my brother that's really inspired me and shown me what dedication to family means. She's been a tremendous role model in so many ways, in the way she's really given up a lot of her life to raise us and to make sure that we had, that she was there for all of our sports events and everything like that. Is a lot of what I try to emulate for my kids and who I want to be as a father. My mom is so talented in so many ways, but her dedication to us as a family has really been remarkable.
Thank you. District Attorney Gascon, we don't have to alter the question for you this time. The same question. Who's been influencing your worldview and how?
That's nice. I would say that both my parents. I come from a blue-collar family. We were immigrants. My father fought for Fidel Castro's revolution and then fought against Fidel Castro. I have family members that went to political prison for decades. We came to this country running away from communism. I learned the hard way, having to grow up as a young immigrant in a very poor community. And the one thing that I always respected was the love that my father had for this country. I can tell you that my father used to say that he was an American by choice because he did become a U.S. citizen. And when I joined the U.S. Army, it was probably one of the most proud moments in his life, at the same time that my mother was scared to death that I was going in the Army at a time where we were in conflict. And I looked at that man, looked up to that man my entire life, and he continues to be a model even though he died nearly 10 years ago.
Thank you. Mr. Hochman, which individual has most influenced your worldview, and how so?
My parents, clearly. My father was a Canadian immigrant, came to this country, went to UCLA Law School in its first graduating class, went right into the Air Force, became a federal prosecutor, and then started his law practice for 50 years. My mom actually was a trailblazing woman who was the first woman that was head of major community organizations locally, nationally, and throughout the state. They taught myself and my three siblings three things at the dinner table, and it was a loud dinner table. First is that giving back to your community is not an optional exercise, it's a responsibility that we all have. Second, that the Jewish notion, and I was raised in the Jewish faith of charity, it's tzedakah. It doesn't just mean charity, it means justice. So when you actually care for others, you're bringing more justice in this world. And the third value they taught me is that if you save even one life, it's as if you save the entire world.
Thank you. Ms. Ramirez, who is it who shaped you?
The most influential individuals in my life have been my parents and my grandparents. They immigrated here from Mexico without knowing anyone, started a business, a family-run business that still exists today. And it is really the value that they showed me of hard work and what hard work can accomplish. I admire their bravery and really think about that bravery and having to leave a country where you feel so at home and come to another country where you are a stranger. And it is really they who inspire me to want to make sure that our county is safe for immigrants like them and all of the immigrants that come here and want to be safe. So they definitely are the most influential on me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hatami, your answer on this question.
My wife. I had a very, very tough childhood, went through a lot of trauma, not only as a young child, but also as a teenager. And I really look up to my wife. She works 2 overtime shifts a week, plus she works a 40-hour shift as a detective, and she takes care of the entire family. She takes care of my kids. She watches the family when I do trials. She was there for me every day during the Gabriel Fernandez case. She has a beautiful heart. She really, really cares. She definitely uplifts me. Not only is she my wife, she's my best friend. She's taught me how to be a better person, also be a better dad. And I think that through all the cases that I have to handle on a daily basis, it's important to come home and be able to talk to somebody about the things that you go through and be able to have a best friend and somebody to uplift you and make you feel good about the community and what you're doing.
He doesn't even need to do a Valentine's Day card. Look at that. He just got some points.
And I don't think we're having any rebuttals in this round either.
Yeah.
Judge Mitchell, who has been influential to you.
I don't want to diss my parents, but I'm going to pursue a different response to the question. I've always loved history, and historical figures have always spoken to me in a very meaningful way. Abraham Lincoln certainly is at the top of the list. I named my youngest son Lincoln in honor of Abraham Lincoln. Here is a man who confronted a great moral issue in our country, slavery, and decided that that crucible moment he was going to do what was necessary to extinguish that evil. That is the same reason Martin Luther King, who we just celebrated his birthday, he spoke to me. He continues to speak to me. The courage that he exhibited to stand up to segregation, to inequality, those are the things that have inspired me and will continue to do so.
Thank you very much. Judge Archuleta, who's been inspiring you and influencing you.
My father was born in 1928 to my grandparents who only spoke Spanish. My grandmother had a 3rd grade education, and my grandfather had a 6th grade education. They were born in New Mexico. My grandmother was a maid and a cleaning lady for the rich and famous people. My grandfather was a tailor, a laborer, and a truant officer at the local elementary school. They had 4 children. My 3 aunts all went to college and became teachers in the 1940s when Latino women never went to college. My father served in Korea in the coldest winter in 1951. He was in a foxhole in Korea in 1951, and he earned the Purple Heart because he has shrapnel in his neck, but he would never talk about it. He got out of the Korean War, went to San Jose State, and became the first Spanish-speaking probation officer in Orange County. If it wasn't for my father, I would not be sitting up here today. And he's 95 years old, and when I became a judge, he put the robe on me, and the inside said Deb, which is what he's always called me and continues to call me. So thank you, Daddy. I love you, in case you're listening.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much for that heartfelt answer, Judge. Judge Milton.
Thank you. I'd have to say my parents. I grew up in Indiana in the 60s and 70s, and we were a part of I was raised in a Judeo-Christian church, Had to go to church 3 to 4 days a week. Even though I didn't want to go, I went. I was required to go. But, you know, those experiences, they instilled a lot in me. Values, sympathy, honesty, all the things that you can take from being in a Christian church. Even though I suffered some of the indignities in the racially tense country during the 60s and 70s, I think it made me a stronger man, built character, and my parents always taught me, respect the law. Always respect the law. And that's the way I feel today. To this day, I sympathize with victims. I never want to see injustice. I give to Wounded Warriors projects. We're a patriotic family. We occupied every branch of the service, brother hurt in Vietnam, and we've always been that way, very patriotic, and we love this country, and we want to protect it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, we go to Mr. McKinney, who has shaped your worldview, and how so?
Yes, I referenced her earlier. For me, it's my sister. She is my hero. She is a real-life superhero. And it's a little bittersweet for me to think about it because she sacrificed so much of her own life for her family. When my father died, I very well could have gone into the system. I could have become a foster child, and we know children who go into the foster system don't fare very well. But my sister, who was already raising 3 of her own children by herself, stepped up and took me and another sibling in and raised us as her own. And I love her for that. And she's the kind of woman who would do anything for her family. She worked through sickness and in health. She was the only woman at the father-son fishing contest. Showed up with a fishing pole and thigh-high boots and went into the pond on a chilly spring day. So, yes, it's my sister, and anything that's good about me, I credit to her.
Wow, that was great. I'm glad we did that question, and hopefully it gives everybody a chance to get to know you better and who shaped your worldview. For people that may just be joining us, you are watching the L.A. County District Attorney's debate. I'm Elex Michaelson along with Jon Regardie. We are on lamag.com. We're also on LA Ist on the radio 89.3. Thanks, everybody, for watching and for listening. Now back to some of the issues that divide us. And let's talk about Prop 47. We'll start with you, Mr. Chemerinsky. In 2014, California voters passed Prop 47, which changed the threshold for prosecuting a retail theft. Anything stolen under $950 now classified as a misdemeanor rather than a felony. Mr. Gascon was one of the co-authors of it. Now, this is being rethought of by a lot of state leaders. There's a debate in California whether we should amend Prop 47. Do you think that Prop 47 has made us safer or less safe? And if less safe, how should it be changed?
I don't think Prop 47 has contributed to rising property crime. The facts, I think, are really compelling. 37 states throughout the country have a higher threshold for felonies than the $950 felony threshold in California. Texas has a threshold of $2,500 for a felony. I don't believe that changing the threshold, what used to be the threshold was $400, and it was increased to $950. I don't believe that that has contributed to rising property crime. I would not support repealing or changing that threshold. I do believe that property crime and smash and grab robberies need to be a priority. As chief of the Violent and Organized Crime section and as the person in charge and the leader of the federal robbery program, I worked on dozens of robbery cases. I know that they're serious crimes and they're not victimless crimes, and I'd make them a real priority, but I don't think Prop 47 is the problem.
Mr. Gascon, you know there are lots of critics of Prop 47. What do you say to them?
Well, look, first of all, going to organized retail theft is not covered by Prop 47, right? These are violent crimes. This is organized crime. And to this day, we now have over 100 prosecutions of these cases. And as a matter of fact, I had a meeting with the LAPD today because we're looking at other issues, and organized retail theft is already in the reduction because of all the work that we're doing with law enforcement and the prosecutions that we've done. Now, concerning Prop 47, the reality is that when Prop 47 passed in 2014, crime continued to go down at record levels, and there has been multiple studies concerning Prop 47 There hasn't been a single study that have found causation between the threshold, between a misdemeanor and a felony on Prop 47 and any type of crime. What we do have to do is we have to understand, first of all, that misdemeanors continue to be a crime, and Prop 47 has not legalized theft. And we need to continue to refine the way that we address our investigations or our work to get the work done.
Mr. Hochman.
When Mayor Karen Bass organized the Organized Retail Crime Task Force, she invited Sheriff Luna, she invited Michael Moore, the police chief, she invited other police chiefs to the press conference. The one person she did not invite to the press conference was DA George Gascon, because he actually symbolizes the opposite of going after organized retail crime. I would join the bipartisan effort to modify Proposition 47, because in particular when you have a DA that tells juveniles we will not prosecute misdemeanor theft, it is basically a license to steal for juveniles just under $950. Look what happened recently at Reuben's Bakery, where you had over 100 juveniles go into a bakery that, right on January 2nd and steal everything in sight, because they knew that George Gascon's DA's office was not going to prosecute that. So I would modify and join the bipartisan effort to modify Proposition 47.
Ms. Ramirez.
I also think that it is important to amend Proposition 47 to adjust to the issues and the problems that we are currently having in our communities, to be able to sufficiently address them. And one of the things that Prop 47 does not address and does not help us is with these repeat offenders that keep getting arrested and then let out without any prosecution. And you can say that, sure, it didn't affect the prosecution of misdemeanors, but then when we have policies by the district attorney that does not allow us to prosecute misdemeanors, then basically there is no accountability. The criminals are getting away with it with no punishment, and that is unacceptable. So I think it is important for our legislators and us as the district attorney's office to be involved in amending those legislative laws that are no longer helping us with the issues that we have today.
I'm going to give you an opportunity for a rebuttal. 30 seconds, Mr. Gascon. A couple people now brought this up.
Yeah.
This idea that, yes, you can prosecute misdemeanors, but you're not doing that enough. What do you say to that?
Actually, that's not connected to reality. We continue to prosecute misdemeanors that involve violence. We prosecute theft misdemeanors. Here's the misdemeanors that we're not prosecuting. We don't prosecute people driving without a license because that is also an infraction, which this office used to do a great deal of at tremendous cost. We look at crimes that involve mental health and substance dependence, and we know that a concrete box is not going to fix your addiction, and it's not going to fix your mental health problems, and we're looking for other ways to deal with those problems. We are prosecuting cases aggressively. We're just thinking about the work a little differently.
Mr. Hatami, your take on this.
At day one, George Gascon said there was 12 misdemeanors we weren't allowed to prosecute: resisting arrest, disturbing the peace, public drunkenness, solicitation for prostitution, criminal threats. So when he stands up here in front of all of you and just says that wasn't true, it's totally true. I can hand you and everybody his directive that he issued on day one that said 12 misdemeanors he was not going to prosecute. As far as Prop 47 goes, it didn't make our schools safer, it didn't make our neighborhoods safer, and I didn't vote for it. And it does need to be amended. We need to bring the threshold back down. That threshold, I'm not running for DA of Texas. I'm not running for DA of New York. I'm running for DA of Los Angeles. And I'm concerned about the people here in Los Angeles. We have a major issue with smash and grab burglaries. We have a major issue with organized retail theft. So that threshold needs to come down. Number two, we have a major big problem with repeat offenders. Individuals who keep getting arrested for the same thing and getting released, arrested and released. Property crime increased during the 7 years George Gascon was the San Francisco DA, and it just came out that property crime has increased every year George Gascon has been the DA of Los Angeles.
Thank you very much. Judge.
From my vantage point from the bench, Prop 47 has been a disaster. You can say you're prosecuting misdemeanors. I would challenge anyone to research multiple thefts. What are these people being sentenced to? Time served, dismissed. This is what I see. Before coming in here tonight, I walked down to the local CVS. Half of that store, everything was behind locked glass cases. That was not the LA that existed 3 years ago. So in terms of trying to soft pedal and saying that it hasn't made a difference, it's made a difference, and it has depreciated the life that everyday citizens in this community live, and it needs to be repealed.
Judge Archuleta.
Prop 47 was voted in by the electorate in 2014. Prior to George Gascon becoming the district attorney of LA County, we did not have the issues with the quality of life crimes that we do now. What was different? We have an ideologically driven DA who refuses to follow the law as it is currently written. He misapplies Prop 47 because it does not comport with his ideology and his narrative. I understand Texas. However, Texas aggregates the total value of what is taken. Here in Los Angeles County, the Prop 47 was once again sold to the voters as a Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. George Gascon was one of the co-authors. Well, we see how safe San Francisco is. We see how safe LA is now that he's been here for 3 years. He has over 14,000 misdemeanor cases sitting on his desk because he refuses to prosecute misdemeanors and quality of life crimes. That needs to change, not Prop 47.
Okay. Judge Milton.
Prop 47, the threshold amount of $950. Over the years, I began the DA's office back in 1978, and I've seen it go from $200 to $400, $450, and now it's at $950. I don't think that's the correct analysis as far as it applies to smash and grab, that mob-type entry into establishments, which really is just wreaking havoc throughout the county. These things could be, I believe Mr. Gascon is using the threshold amount of $950 to say that these are misdemeanors because the amount. However, if you go, the penal code says if you enter into any establishment, residential or commercial, and you had the intent upon entry to steal anything of any value, it's a burglary. And if you use force or fear on the occupants, it's a robbery. Those are felonies.
Thank you very much. Mr. McKinney.
Alex, a wise man once said, there are no solutions to big problems. There are only trade-offs. Prop 47 was passed to lower our jail and prison populations. That's why it was passed. It wasn't passed to advance safe neighborhoods or safe schools.
Even though that was the name of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It did lower the jail population as designed, but it did some things over here too that may not have been intended, but they happened, and they've become disastrous for our community. The $950 threshold is not a big deal. It really isn't. You could raise it to $1,500, it wouldn't change much. It's our inability to charge repeat offenders with more serious crimes as they commit theft after theft. That is one of the big problems. The other big problem is that it eviscerated our drug courts, because in addition to meddling around with our theft law, it also reduced drug possession crimes to misdemeanors, and as misdemeanors, our drug treatment courts have no authority now, no time to help hardcore addicted offenders.
Mr. Siddall.
You know, to me, the whole debate that we're having on Prop 47 shows the incredible divide that is on this stage. There are people who use Prop 47 in a hysterical way as though the world is ending and it basically stopped us from being able to do criminal justice in Los Angeles. That is not accurate. But it's also not accurate when Mr. Gascon and apparently Mini Gascon are saying that it did not have any effect on property crime, because it did. And actually, the PPIC actually did a study that showed that Prop 47 did have an increase in terms of property crime. And in fact, while the rest of the country started experiencing a decline in property crime, it actually increased in California. So we don't need to repeal it. but we do need to change it as it applies to repeat offenders. In other words, if you've done this 20 times, you should probably be treated differently than the first-time offender.
Mr. Chemerinsky, I'll give you 30 seconds to respond to the charge that you are Mini Gascon as a name. What do you say to that and to his point also about Prop 47?
Thank you. I'm a former federal prosecutor, and I served as chief of the Violent and Organized Crime Section at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I worked closely with law enforcement to hold really dangerous people accountable. And on the specific topic of retail theft and smash and grab robberies, I led the federal robbery program at the U.S. Attorney's Office for 7 years. I worked on dozens of successful robbery prosecutions. I thought it was unacceptable when our current district attorney didn't apply for millions of dollars in funding to go after organized retail theft. My number one priority would be public safety.
Real quickly.
Alex, robberies are different from Prop 47, okay? They're not the same thing. So I appreciate that Mr. Chemerinsky was the chief of a division for about 6 months in the federal prosecutor's office. But here's the problem. He doesn't have any experience in terms of actual state prosecution. And if he knew anything about Prop 47, he would know that has nothing to do at all with robberies whatsoever.
Real quickly, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you. I spent 9.5 years as a federal prosecutor. I prosecuted hundreds of cases. I also supervised prosecutors and worked closely with law enforcement. I was a deputy chief of the section and then chief of the Violent and Organized Crime Section of the United States Attorney's Office. That's a U.S. Attorney's Office that covers 19 million people. I worked closely with law enforcement every single day in that role. I understand Prop 47 very well, and I understand state law very well. I simply disagree with everything Mr. Siddell just said.
Okay, there we go. Now we're going to move on to another topic, John.
And this time we're going to talk about homelessness. And Mr. Hochman, we're going to start with you on this one. There are an estimated 75,000 unhoused individuals in Los Angeles County, and compared to society at large, a disproportionate number of them end up in the criminal justice system. As the district attorney, what steps can and will the office take under your leadership to address this crisis?
Two major steps. First, we would be an active partner with the host team, the Homeless Outreach Services team, which is a partnership of law enforcement, a specialized unit in the Sheriff's Department that works with the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Public Works, nonprofit organizations, that goes from homeless encampment to homeless encampment, and executes a 5-point protocol: identify, assess, outreach, post, and move. In 7 years that they've been operating, they have moved thousands of people from homeless encampments and have only arrested 2. I would make the DA's office a partner with the host team. And also I would use the new care courts. The care courts are coming online now that allow judges for the first time in 40 years to order someone with serious mental illness into a residential program in lieu of putting them back on the street or in prison. I would make sure that the DA's office is an active partner in making sure that people with mental illness get the treatment that they need.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ramirez, a long time in the DA's office. How would you address the crisis if you're leading the office?
Yes, I think that as a district attorney, we have a responsibility to be actively involved in any of the social issues that are affected by decisions that we make within the district attorney's office. But I think it is very important in establishing partnerships with other county departments, community-based organizations that directly deal with the homeless, that we within the district attorney's office be made aware, be trained, be informed about those options that are available to us so that we can incorporate into our policies when we decide what we're going to offer a person that is experiencing homelessness, that we understand what options there are available to that person. So we have to be forward-thinking and incorporate those kind of options into our dispositions, into our sentencings. But we can't do that unless our lawyers and our staff have the knowledge to be able to do that effectively. So that is why working together with other departments and community-based organizations is important.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hatami, your approach.
We have more veterans who are homeless here in California than any other state in the United States. Plus, we have thousands of children who are homeless. We also have many single moms and victims of domestic violence who are homeless. We need to do everything in our power to collaborate with the mayor and with the local government to try to get all these individuals housed as soon as we can. That is a number one priority. We should not be allowing homeless to be outside in the elements, to be suffering. I also don't support open-air drug markets or giving individuals drugs. I believe in recovery and trying to help individuals recover from addiction issues as well. But I think it's important also to say, as the district attorney, if somebody is homeless, but they're also committing a violent crime, we need to make sure we prosecute that case as well also, because there's victims in those situations as well. And so we need to not treat anybody differently. If you're homeless or not and you're committing a crime, we need to make sure that we're fighting for those victims as much as we can. And then we need actual courts to help with individuals who are homeless and who have lower type cases to try to get them the services that they need.
Thank you. Judge Mitchell, an issue you know intimately through running the Skid Row Running Club. Your take on how you would address this?
I do. The research indicates that approximately 90% of the chronically homeless suffer from addiction. 70% of the chronically homeless suffer from mental illness. Much of the mental illness that we see on the streets is a result of long-time drug abuse. The key is to get the addict into treatment. And the only way you're going to get an addict into treatment is to essentially, as Mr. McKinney indicated, bring that person into court on a drug charge, possession, or small sales case, and say, okay, you've got an option. You can do 90, 180 days in custody, or you can go into treatment. And again, having sat on the bench and dealt with hundreds of these cases, when that is presented to an addict, 95% of the people say, okay, judge, I will give treatment a chance. That is essential.
Thank you very much. Judge Archuleta, your approach to homelessness in the office.
Homeless encampments are rife with crime. There is drug dealing, there is human trafficking, there is sex trafficking going on in these encampments. We cannot criminalize the homeless. However, we can prosecute the crimes that are being committed in those encampments. On Christmas Day, we lost a woman over at El Camino College who was killed by a homeless, mentally ill man on Christmas Day by a violent assault. Why was that individual on the street? I know it's the progressive point of view to let these people live under tarps and tents when it's 38 degrees and raining like it's going to be this weekend. This is the attitude of the current district attorney. This is progressive. This is compassionate. No, ladies and gentlemen, it's inhumane. These people are drug addicted. They need to be forced into treatment with consequences for failing to participate. If you're mentally ill, you need to be forced into a program where you have psychiatric services, medication, food, and care. Not living on tarps and tents. Children, women, and families on the streets of L.A. County at 70,000.
Thank you very much. Judge Milton, your approach.
Yes. Let's be frank here. The California Constitution provides for a district attorney for each county. The government code provides that the district attorney's function is public prosecution. The state of being homeless or having mental deficits or chemically addicted, that's not a crime. I feel so much, it's heartfelt for me to look at the plight of people living out in these streets in the cold and the rain and tarps and all that type of thing. But the district attorney does not have jurisdiction to address those problems unless one of these, the homeless or the chemically addicted or the person with the mental deficiencies commits a crime. It's only if one of the people who fall within that class commit a crime does the district attorney have jurisdiction to do anything. Otherwise, the district attorney is powerless to do anything about homelessness. You can engage the Board of Supervisors and social services agencies, but that's about it.
Thank you very much. Mr. McKinney, how are you?
Well, I disagree with retired Judge Milton on this issue. Homelessness is the humanitarian crisis of our time. And the district attorney, as the most consequential elected official in the county of Los Angeles, has a role to play. And we have a role to play because so many homeless people do come within the jurisdiction of the district attorney's office, either as offenders or as victims. And when they come within our jurisdiction, we have the ability to use diversion and other laws to guide them inside, to guide them into places where they can get the services that they need. We have a mayor who's presiding over a city where 45,000 people will sleep on the streets tonight. She needs help. She needs a new district attorney. She needs someone who she will not be embarrassed to call to her side when she holds a press conference that deals with a pressing issue in the city and county of Los Angeles.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sinal, how are you handling the price?
May I
We're
respond?
going to keep going forward with this and get through this one.
He disagreed with me, and I think I should be given a few seconds to respond.
30
Mr. McKinney?
30 seconds.
All right. Mr. McKinney, it's unclear to me why he disagreed with me, but again, he just said the way to get them in is after that homeless person commits a crime. That's the only way you can get them in. Once they commit a crime, you can offer them drug interdiction programs and other services as kind of incentive to turn your life around. But until that person commits a crime, the district attorney's office has no jurisdiction over a person just because of their state of homelessness.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I have 10 seconds?
Yes.
40% of the county jail population tonight is mentally ill, and many of them are homeless. So there's plenty of opportunity for us to help in this problem, Mr. Milton.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Saul, we'd like to hear your approach.
So I have a very different approach from the district attorney. George Gascon's approach is simply disengage with this issue completely. I believe we can actually engage in this homeless issue in a productive way. And the model is Mike Webb, the Redondo Beach city attorney, created a program of homeless courts in Redondo Beach. It meets once a month. It basically coordinates all the social services that the homeless will receive. They meet outside. There's a prosecutor, there's a defense lawyer, there's the judge, and then there's all the social service providers. And the purpose is to graduate homeless from being unhoused to actually giving them permanent housing. It starts off very simply with IDs, making sure that they get mental health services, housing services, eventually supportive housing, and then permanent housing. And that's how they graduate. And that's how we can actually have a role throughout Los Angeles County.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chemerinsky, as DA, how are you approaching this issue?
Homelessness is clearly the great crisis in our area at this time. And while we can't prosecute our way out of it, and we need to be careful not to criminalize poverty, there are certain things the DA's office can do from a leadership perspective that I think can make a real difference. Specifically, things the DA's office can do to break what's oftentimes a jail to streets and then back to jail cycle. So what can the DA's office do? And they all go to the places in which the criminal justice system, homelessness, and mental health often interact. So first, the DA's office can do a much better job of promoting better rehabilitation and reentry programs. I absolutely believe that it's part of the role of the district attorney as the leader of our criminal justice system for the county to be a real leader in promoting effective reentry and rehabilitation programs. Second, we should be promoting better policing and co-response teams around mental health issues. And third, we need more specialized courts, specifically mental health courts, to address the mental health defendants that come before the system.
Thank you. Mr. Gascon, there's been some criticism of how you have approached this issue. Talk to us about what steps you did take in your first 4 years to respond to the crisis and how you would build on them in term 2.
Now, can I get about a half an hour since I need to rebut? Look, the reality is that we have a very limited role unless a houseless person commits some other crime. And when they do, if they get arrested, we prosecute them. The county of L.A. has approximately 10 million people, and about a half of the population, when it comes to misdemeanor prosecutions, is done by city attorneys, including the L.A. city attorney. So many of the cases that people are talking about here, in fact, many of the cases that come in front of this courts are not being handled by the office. When people commit other crimes, we're addressing them, but we're also looking at diversion. We're looking at other avenues in order to facilitate not only reentry, but create more bandwidth for services. We've been working with the Board of Supervisors and other partners to make sure that we get enough mental health beds, because as it was pointed out, a large number of the people in our county jail today also have mental health issues. But what the district attorney should never do is increase houselessness by thoughtless behavior where you prosecute people that are vulnerable and they lose their employment when they are being prosecuted, and then they become houseless, as this office did for many years.
Thank you very much.
All right, we are running out of time, so I'm going to pick up the pace if we can. Try to get some sort of lightning round sort of stuff in here. Death penalty. Raise your hand if you would pursue death penalty cases as district attorney. Okay, now we know this takes. I wish we could have more of a discussion on it, but now we know where people are on that. We're going to go around the room. Maybe we start over here. Real simply, maybe one sentence answer. On a scale of 1 to 10, how safe in L.A. County do you feel right now?
0.
Judge.
I'll use my 10 seconds. In the courtroom, over and over again, people will instruct their attorneys after consulting with their clients in lockup. They come into court, they ask the prosecutor, I want a Gascon special.
Okay, so I guess that's not
Order
that
that
safe.
in and
What
out?
number was that? 1 to 10, how safe do you feel right now in L.A. County?
As a father of 2 young children, 0.
Mr. Beers?
Also 0, but it's not important how I feel. It's important how the community feels, and I can tell you that most of the community will say 0 as well.
Mr. Hockman?
Echoing the fact that 2/3 of people polled feel less safe today than when George Gascon came into office, I would agree with 0.
Mr. Gascon?
Look, as I indicated earlier, according to the Gallup poll, 63% of Americans feel less safe today than they did a year ago. That includes our community, and part of my work, and quite frankly that of other elected leaders, is to work on those issues. We need to continue to do things to improve the quality of life of our community, but we also have to make sure that we do no harm.
So what's your number?
in doing so. What is my number?
1 to 10.
Look, my number is irrelevant because it's how the community feels.
All right.
We can order that in and out, too.
Chemerinsky?
I'd be about a 5 or 6. I think we can do a lot better. I don't think our district attorney has been a good leader or effective. And so I'd say 5 or 6.
Well, I think this is where we're going to actually agree. I think it's about a 5 or 6. I think we can do better, but I also think we're not at a crisis moment where we were in the 80s and the 90s.
Mr. McKinney?
Well, I'm a man and a pretty big guy, and I can tell you that I don't feel as safe as I believe I should when I'm walking around the streets.
Is that a number?
I put it at a 5. We can do better.
Judge?
It would just be guesswork for me to put a number on it, but I think most people feel that they're not safe walking around in the communities in Los Angeles County.
Okay, this is challenging, but one word to describe your candidacy. One word to describe your candidacy. Judge? Yeah. We'll go around. How about to the mic?
Fair-minded, one word with a hyphen in it.
There we go. Mr. McKinney?
Proportional.
Modernize.
Justice.
Safety.
Transformative.
Leadership.
Hope.
Fair.
Formidable.
Okay, and now we're going to go around this way, have a little bit of fun. If any of you have seen our political show, The Issue Is, we like to ask some personality questions to get to know you, and maybe we'll find some ways that you guys get along. So what is your favorite movie?
I can't remember the last time I saw a movie. How about Woody Allen, Manhattan?
Okay.
The Killing Fields.
All right.
Game of Thrones.
That's a movie? Yeah. Well, it's not. That's a TV show. I guess you're classifying it as a movie? Okay.
When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, very nice. I'll have what she's having.
Tie between Top Gun and Top Gun 2.
Oh, nice. Mr. Gascon?
History of the World, Part 1.
Okay.
A Few Good Men.
Dune.
I'm going to go with Godfather 2.
All right.
Tie between Harry Met Sally and the one with Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts. Who was that?
Notting Hill?
Notting
Is that
Hill.
what we're talking
Notting
about?
Hill.
Okay,
Notting
there we go. I
Hill.
wouldn't have thought he was a Notting Hill guy, but that's what we learned from this. Also fun, favorite band or musician? We'll go this way.
I don't have a favorite band. I'm
Really?
old.
None? Okay.
I'm old.
Okay. Well, there's been music for a long time.
Let me think. I'd have to reflect on that a while. I just
Okay.
cannot-
All right. We'll come back to you. Mr. McKinney.
The Notorious B.I.G.
B.I.G. Very nice. Yeah.
The Chachaleros.
Okay.
Rolling Stones.
Nice.
Kenny G.
Kenny G. Ooh.
Tie between Springsteen and the Eagles.
Nice.
No question for me, the Eagles.
Tupac.
The Beatles.
My husband and Bruce.
Okay.
I have an answer now.
Okay.
The Eagles.
The Eagles. There we go. They were just here. I don't know if any of you saw them in concert. And we'll end on this one, and maybe this will bring some of you together. What is your favorite sports team?
My daughter's travel softball team.
Oh, that's a good answer.
The Los Angeles Lakers.
Very nice.
Dodgers.
I bleed blue, the Dodgers.
Any Los Angeles team.
Oh, come on. That's the cop-out.
All right. I'll go with the Dodgers.
Okay.
I think we're going to have a lot of agreement here. Dodgers.
The Dodgers.
River Plate.
You're going to cost me the election right now. I'm from the East Coast, everybody. It's the New York Yankees.
Oh, wow.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs. Well, we did find, Mr. Gascon, some agreement with you on something, right? The Dodgers, at least many of us can get behind that. I just want to say, I said to you guys before, running for office is hard. You get a lot of stuff thrown at you, and it's really important that people step up to serve. And I think it's really meaningful that we had a civil discussion here, that everybody had a chance to learn more about your positions. Hopefully you felt like what we did was fair, but I appreciate you all being here. And John, I think you did a great job as well.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to everyone for coming out.
Thank you, guys.
The election is March 5th.
Election March 5th. Go vote, go vote, go vote. Send in those ballots. And if you saw this and liked it, this will be on the LA Magazine YouTube page. Send it to your friends so they can be more educated and vote as well. Thanks to our friends at LA Magazine and Engine Company number 28 for hosting us. Thanks to the crowd as well. And thank you for listening on LAist. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you for watching the Los Angeles Magazine's District Attorney Debate, brought to you by Los Angeles Magazine. Thank you for watching the Los Angeles Magazine's District Attorney Debate, brought to you by Los Angeles Magazine.